That, so.
All right, look, we're gonna get to the question that everyone has been wanting to know.
It was chariots for you, written for you.
That wasn't the question.
That was a good question. Hold on.
I don't think they knew each other, did you?
I think I met Steven right after that album dropped. So it was not written for me.
But that was one that to me, I know you said Lil Wayne, and I think Cheers to You was probably better than that, the Lollipop. I'm sorry.
It was a great song. It just didn't do the commercial numbers that Lollipop did.
Well, see, Lollipop was a crossover song.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So anytime a hit, it's not really a hit unless you cross over.
Right.
You know, so that was, and the good thing about his music, he's always had the ability to cross over, like the Try Again, and Try Again wasn't even released as a single, but it went #1 on Billboard.
Right.
Well, it was on the
So
soundtrack
it kind
too.
of was
wasn't
a
it?
record. It made a record. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
It was a soundtrack.
yeah.
What movie was it?
When that Leo's movie, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
Romeo Must Die.
Yeah.
All right, look. People want to know. I wanted to know because I didn't know. What was the cause? Because it was untimely. What was the cause of Static's death? And before you answer it, I've read about it, right? So I don't want to get you in dangerous territory. But I read about it, and from what I read was that there was a illness, and I'm going to put a name up in a minute, that he suffered, and there was some issues with Baptist East Hospital. So during one of these issues that he suffered, I think it was it a blood disorder?
No. It was, yeah, I guess you could say similar. It was an autoimmune disorder.
Right.
And it was called, it was myasthenia gravis. It's what they thought he had. So we at that point, he'd only been in the hospital 12 hours. So, it's hard to diagnose somebody like in 12 hours, but that's what they thought he had.
Right, so the hospital gave him a treatment or a procedure that they thought would help with this illness, and some suspect that treatment was actually the cause of his death.
Well, okay, I'll tell you what happened.
Okay.
They were going to do a treatment that's similar to dialysis. That's where the blood comes in, and where they would take the blood out and put it back in and clean it.
So it's like a blood transfusion or dialysis or whatever.
Yeah, it's like filtering the blood from toxins and anything that that the body doesn't need. And the doctor, we never got to that point because the line that he put in wrong. So when he threaded it in his vein, he punched holes in his vein.
The doctor did.
The doctor did. And
Right.
he actually threaded it in blindly versus using a scope to see where he was going. So he did it blindly. And mainly I think because, I assume he was in a hurry because it wasn't supposed to be done till the next morning in the first place. And then all of a sudden everything was rush. The doctor wants to do it now, and and I'm like, okay. I mean, it just everything started happening real fast. It was really weird how everything went down, but he threaded the line and then he left the hospital.
Oh, he actually left the hospital?
He left
Okay.
with the hospital, and when my husband started complaining after he put it in, he was like, is this supposed to hurt? Because the whole time he was in the hospital, he wasn't in any pain. His issues was he had a muscle tone deficiency where he couldn't swallow.
No, was this an ongoing issue?
No, it just happened all of a sudden.
Okay.
All of a sudden, he couldn't swallow and his eye was droopy. So they thought maybe he had had a stroke, and they ruled all that out. He hadn't had a stroke, and I guess they did their research and assumed that was something that it could have possibly been. Which is the same condition as the father on Empire had.
Terrence Howard. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lord Terrence Howard, his character.
Yeah, you remember in the first season, he had this sickness.
Right.
And it was myasthenia gravis. It's a rare sickness.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it just so happened that that's what they picked for
So
him.
up to this point, no signs of illness?
No pain.
No pain, no anything?
No pain.
And this was what, 33 years old?
33 years old.
Okay.
And he was like, is this supposed to hurt? Something's not right. So, his mother called the nurse in, and the nurse said, I'm going to call the doctor. She called the doctor, and the doctor told her to pull it. He's going to take him to surgery in the morning and do it right. which was so dumb of him. And I think of her too. Because if you don't know, to pull the line, because really, honestly, if you don't know the risk of pulling a newly placed line, you shouldn't pull it.
Right.
Because usually when you pull those lines, they've already been placed for a period of time, you know. But you having a problem with a newly placed line, so something's going on. So what was going on? She pulled the line. She came in and she pulled the line, and he had perforated his vein. He had put holes in his vein.
The position that
threaded it in. So what was going on is it was leaking blood. And he could feel it, and it was filling up in his chest. And instead of them checking the x-ray before they pulled it, because on the x-ray clearly showed that it's bleeding.
Right.
So nobody checked the x-ray. And the nurse went in there, you know, I'm going to pull this line. And she pulled the line. And when she pulled the line, she panicked.
Wow.
You know, and he's like trying to, you know, he's dying. You know what I'm saying? He's just like, and she's calling his name. Stephen, talk to me. Stephen, talk to me. And, you know, it took for his mother to run out in the hallways like, something's wrong with my son. So another nurse ended up coming in and was like, hold on, wait, we need to call a code. So it took them like 10 minutes to call a code once they pulled the line out. So
basically his body probably filled up, his lungs filled
up. Yes, because this is like a tire. You know how you take a nail out of the tire. Once you take a nail out of the tire, it was just over. Right. So it just, you know, filled his lungs up, and then oxygen wasn't going to his brain, and then it just went from one thing to another.
Wow.
So there was a lawsuit with the hospital, right?
There was.
Lawsuit settled?
Settled.
Okay. All right. So we don't get into that.
Move on.
It's like, oh my God.
Because you know what? This was not only, when I read about this, it was actually, I want to say it was like, this is 50.com or something like that. This wasn't even covered majorly in the city of Louisville.
Because this is Louisville, y'all. You know what I'm saying? This, you got to think about that, you know. This is a majority, you know, this is a good old boy state.
Somebody called somebody, keep this under wraps.
Yeah, we're keeping this under wraps. And then they convinced me to keep it under wraps. You know, we don't want you talking about it. But it was all everybody was in cahoots.
Right.
You know, so you really can't trust nobody because they all eat and drink together.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And they, you know, that's what they do. Malpractice attorneys, they are back and forth with each other. They know each other. They make deals behind the table.
Golf together.
That's what they said. Most deals are made on the golf course.
Yeah. So that's all it was, you know. And the fact that, you know, I was told that, you know, there's a young black woman is not going to get a substantial amount of money by a judge, you know.
So that was kind of your cue to settle.
Right. Yeah. You know, he let me know. He was like, you can end up with nothing just because you're black. And then it wasn't about the money, you know what I'm saying?
It's the principle.
Right, you know, and then there probably would have been no amount of money I would have been satisfied with.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
For the death of my husband, you know. It couldn't, if nothing would have been, if they'd have gave me 50, 100 million, it wouldn't have been enough.
Right.
Because I'm like, this is my husband's life, you know, and then just to think that he became a number.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
this
saying?
procedure was called plasmapheresis.
Plasmapheresis.
Plasmapheresis. So if I ever get sick, I know where I'm
Plasmapheresis.
Right.
We'll see straight.
This is not my first time hearing this story. So.
This is the first time you heard it?
No.
Is this your first time talking about this publicly?
No, she did an interview. What magazine was that?
Vibe magazine.
Vibe
magazine.
I read it before too. I had it.
And I'm not real sure because I've heard, like, I've seen different articles where he's OD'd and he's had aneurysm and
the wife set him up for the insurance money. I'm just
I know that one I haven't heard.
Nah, it wasn't just about this.
But I've heard all kind of things.
You can smack him on the bald head if you want to.
This is from the horse's mouth. I'll tell you what happened. That's what they basically killed him. And then I'm gonna be honest with you. In my opinion, they tried to cover it up.
Oh, definitely.
They tried to cover it up.
See,
It was
but
a
one
whole
thing,
lot of.
you and his mother was there, so y'all seen
I don't
everything,
remember type things and changing records and.
Now look, when he was in the hospital,
They didn't realize who he was.
I was going to ask you that. Did they know who he was?
No, and after, they realized who he was, everybody's scrambling.
That's when they really try to cover it up.
And then they also, even talked, I think, because, usually when someone dies within 24 hours of a hospital visit, it's automatically a coroner's case. Mm-hmm. They're supposed to do an autopsy. Mm-hmm. But the next day I was called and said, we looked at his x-rays and seen that he died from complications to a medical procedure.
Right.
So we're not going to do an autopsy.
Wow.
Plus with his age and everything else, it's kind of like a healthy 33-year-old man coming into the hospital, and all of a sudden.
Yeah, it would have been harder for me to prove if I hadn't got that autopsy, because they were trying to say he had I can't even remember the names of the things, but they was saying all kind of stuff. It could have been this, it could have been that. So thank God I had family around me. That everybody was like, unique. I mean, it was God, I would say, because I end up getting a private autopsy done, and just so happened is the person who did it was a person who ran the coroner's office for 30 years. So I got him to do the autopsy, and because of him and his testimonies, and I was able to, prove that that's what happened to him.
See, and y'all blame me for not liking hospitals. I don't mess with hospitals. If I get sick and they keep me overnight, best believe it was against my will. I need y'all to come up to the hospital and come with a protest. And,
you
always
need to have family around. I would say this: don't ever leave your family in the hospital.
Yeah.
You have to have somebody there watching you. Yeah. I know I've had family members in the hospital said they was mean to me when y'all left, and I know nurses. I have friends that are nurses, and they see a lot of things, and see a lot of mistakes, and they cover up. They might give somebody too much insulin, and they're scared, and watching them all night. But they don't say nothing. If you live, they don't say nothing. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of things that go on, and you have to watch them doctors. You have to have copies of your records. You know what I'm saying? I want to see what you're writing down. And how much you giving them and weight. You have to be on it, and then also do your own research.
Well, see, we need women in there with us then, because us men, a cute nurse come in, we be like, we forget all about the treatment.
Right.
We ain't paying attention to
buddy, you got yourself right there, player. I'm trying to tell you, my mother been a nurse for a while. You damn.
But you have to do your own research. If they say you have something, get a second opinion.
Right.
And then research it. What are the treatments? What are my options? Don't just let them tell you because that wasn't the only option for him. They could have tried something less extensive. And I didn't know that. It just, everything was happening so fast, and a lot of times it's all about the dollar.
So why Baptist
they're
East?
Trying to get that money.
Why Baptist East? Because I heard Baptist East been having not to say that, but it wasn't always the best quality of care.
I don't know why Baptist East at this point, but I've learned through this situation that the best hospital to go to in Louisville would be University.
That's what they tell me. They say for trauma.
Because I was told that the only way that he would have lived is if he was at University, because they're not equipped for trauma. Mm-hmm. He had it was trauma. He was bleeding.
Right.
So they wasn't really equipped for that, and they running around. They calling heart doctors, and he coded for an hour and a half. Mm. That's rare.
So what is code? I don't know what that means. What does code mean?
That's when they're trying to resuscitate you.
Okay.
And usually after 10 minutes, you know what I'm saying, the brain is dead.
Everything else.
They tried to do it for how long?
An hour and a half.
You were present for all this?
I was present. I actually wasn't in the room during the whole code, but at the end, they played me. I won't tell y'all about that. They kind of played me.
No, put them on blast. Go ahead.
I put them on blast. The whole time he was in there, I was like, just let me go talk to him. I just want to talk to him. Just let me talk to him.
Well, man, we need you outside, man.
Yeah, actually outside, around the corner, down the hallway, like way away, And eventually, after an hour and a half, and I'm just praying and praying in the hallway, praying, family members are showing up. And they was like, the doctor wants to see you. And I'm like, at this point, nah. It's been an hour and a half, and I just got this, you know, if that's your soul. And, you know, I just had this feeling that something
wasn't right.
And then he was like, well, you gotta come. So they just basically pulled me down the hallway. And I kept saying, no, no. So I get in there, hour and a half later, he's all cleaned up. Everything is, you know, just
looking good.
Looking good, you know, and they're still doing CPR. Wow. You know, and I could hear sounds coming out of him like, ugh. And I'm like talking to him. I'm like, you know, talking to him.
Maybe you all right? You good on here?
No, like, don't go.
Oh, is it okay?
Fight.
At that point.
Yeah, I need you to fight. Don't go. We need you. You know what I'm saying? Fight. And I'm talking to him, pleading and pleading, but my husband was already dead. Wow. He was already gone. Had been gone. You know what I'm saying? So they was just playing me. You know, and they had me in there talking to a dead body. Wow. You know, and I really, to this point, I don't appreciate that. They could have spared me that. Right. Because that was traumatizing for me. Right. You know, because I'm sitting there, and then all of a sudden, the doctor was like, we got to stop. And I was like, no, 5 more minutes. Right. Because I could hear a sound. Right. But it wasn't nothing but just air coming out of him. And that just was the sound. Yeah, it is traumatizing. And he was just like, we got to stop. And I looked at him and I was like, well, what happened? What happened? It was about 8 people standing around the table. And they just stepped back and did this.
What did
they wouldn't say 2 words.
I'm sorry, how did the doctor look at you?
The doctor left the hospital after he died. He left that, he was scared. I guess they claimed he was scared for his life. Because and then he couldn't face me. He couldn't face me. And I'm like, well, where's the doctor? Because I need to know what happened. Right. I left the hospital not knowing what happened to my husband because nobody would talk to me. They knew it was a lawsuit. Right. And that was just messed up. You know what I'm saying? How can you lose somebody's husband and not give him an explanation as to what happened?
So at what point did you figure out, or at what point was it revealed to you that the lines were punctured and things were done wrong? Was that later on?
When the autopsy came back and he showed everything. You know, this is this is that, and that's what happened. This went first, this went second. You know, he was dead. You know, can't nobody survive a hour and a half cold, barely even a 30-minute cold. You know, and what they hoped that would happen was that they could keep his heart beating, so they can keep him on a life support. You know what I'm saying? And maybe he's in a coma, and you know, I wouldn't know, you know, anything to buy them time. I don't know why they kept wanting his heart to beat because he wouldn't have, his brain was gone.
He'd been a vegetable.
Yeah.